A blind person can be heard tapping along a tile floor with their white long cane. They tap along until they come to a door. They try the door handle, which they find locked. The person continues tapping along the floor to the next door. They try the handle and find it locked. They try it again. Yes, it's locked. The blind person continues along, tapping along the floor to the next door. The door opens, and the hallway is flooded with white light. Fade to white. Welcome to Blind Freedom. I'm Terry, and this is my channel, and this is my story about my blindness and my experience with coping with my blindness so that I can get to the freedom and independence that I desire. I'm hoping that some of the things that I've figured out along the way will be helpful to you. This is my first podcast, July 4th, 2023, Independence Day. Welcome to my channel, Blind Freedom. I'm Terry, and I want to open the door to you and welcome you if you're blind and looking for ways to deal with your blindness so that you can obtain freedom in functioning and experience things that you desire that your blindness might have taken away from you or prevents you from having. I also want to invite you, if you know someone who's blind, or if you want to learn more about blindness. It's not very well understood by people that have sight, and there's a lot of misperceptions that people have about people who are blind. For example, there's quite a spectrum of blindness, from you can't see very much at all to you can't see anything at all. I have no central vision, but I do have some peripheral vision around the edges, for now. But that limited low vision prevents me from doing a lot of things that I've had to learn ways to do that are totally different from when I was sighted. Why I'm doing this? I want to help spread my story around and share my tricks for freedom from my blindness. Blindness requires a lot of things in order to be successful. Hello, welcome to Blind Freedom. Here you can find ways to turn barriers of blindness into freedom and independence. At least that's what I'm trying to do. Hi, my name is Terry, and I am blind. Why am I doing this? Well, first I wanted to share my story, my experience. So far, I've found out that it's been kind of a lonely, isolated trek in discovering ways to deal with my blindness. Don't get me wrong, I've gotten lots of support from the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. They are excellent therapists and experts on blindness, and I've learned a great deal from them. But it's hard because a lot of times solutions require creativity and ingenuity. And by the time you're done creating something that actually works, boy, you've got a product that it would be nice to be able to share with others. I wish others had been able to share their products and creations with me. I also want to let other people know what are the tricks and techniques that I've developed, what are the things that work and what don't work. I know that there's a lot that I don't know, and so I'm also very interested in having anybody give me suggestions to improve what I've developed or to throw them out altogether and adopt something that works even better. All of that's possible because every time I get a further step in mastering my blindness and being able to accomplish something, it's a great feeling, and it motivates me to keep going further and further. I want to offer an invitation to everyone, of course, but specifically to people with blindness or low vision, for obvious reasons. In addition to that, I'd like to offer an invitation to anyone who's curious about what blindness is like, or maybe you care for somebody who is blind and you're curious and want to learn more. I want to end this introduction to my first podcast, which I'm making on July 4th, 2023, Independence Day. The country is celebrating our independence from Britain and our freedom to have all sorts of rights and privileges as a society. Well, today I wanted to celebrate my step towards independence by actually being able to do this podcast. I'm amazed. I'm blind, but this is something that I've wanted to do, and today I've been able to take the first step of really accomplishing it. Woohoo! I want to celebrate that with you. Believe me, the accomplishments and celebrations of being blind are few and far between compared to the frustrations and patience that are required to get them. But I want to share them with you, and I hope that every day is a day of independence for all of you, that you all find ways to beat your blindness and have a life that's fully and satisfying, and you get all the desires that you want. So, here's the message, part of my podcast for Independence Day. I want to tell you that I'm not giving this message as an expert in blindness. I've got plenty of those that I meet with that talk with me. I am talking to you as an expert in my blindness, and I do want to share all that I've learned about my blindness and the ways to cope with it, and the ways to be free from my blindness with all of you. So my Independence Day message is about all the different characteristics or steps that I've found are involved with being successful in challenging the barriers of blindness to get to the freedom side. The first one, and this is probably the most important one because without it you can't really move on or do anything beneficial. The first one is called acceptance. Now that's both acceptance by your own self of your disease or your limitations or however you want to label what it is that you have to accept, as well as acceptance of that thing by other people, particularly the ones that care about you. Now the first part, the self-acceptance, the acceptance of your own blindness, everybody puts it off. I did for a long time, but everybody also sees it coming if they have a disease that's progressive like mine. I have glaucoma. I can't talk to you about the experience of having sudden blindness or of having blindness from birth. But I can tell you about how the struggle goes to accept that blindness is going to be permanent and part of your functioning, because it's going to change your world in dramatic ways. And you have to be ready for that. You can't be dreading that. You have to be welcoming it at a certain level, or at least trying. And then there's the acceptance of your blindness of those around you. Now, when it comes to strangers, they have a really easy time accepting my blindness. I think that people are very considerate and will go out of their way to do anything that I ask them to do on a one-time basis at their convenience. Now, people who are close to you, family, friends, they really don't want to accept your blindness because, well, they really don't know what it's all about. There's a lot of misperceptions that the public has about what blindness is, what it's going to mean, what you'll be capable of. And without acceptance of them, they kind of get in your way and push you in directions of trying to save your eyesight instead of develop your strategies. If you get your self-acceptance first, that's helpful, but then you need the ability to persist while all those other people get their own acceptance. But then you're ready to move on. It actually begins to begin easier in a lot of ways after you make that acceptance step, because you realize that it is going to be frustrating. Things will take you a lot longer. There's a lot of things you won't be able to do, at least not in the same way that you used to be able to do it when you could see. But you'll be able to do things in a totally different way if you can embrace your blindness and learn coping strategies and skills that are available. And praise the Lord, we are in an age of technology so that layer of coping is amazing for us these days. But I'll get to that. A second element on the list that I think is required for success with blindness and breaking through to freedom, and I should mention that the rest of these are probably in no particular order, but they're all important. The second one is it takes a lot of strength. You have to put up with a lot of activities that will require an incredible amount of energy. You have to try to do new things when new things are really difficult and oftentimes scary. They're worth doing, though, because once you reach success, it's quite thrilling. You have to keep your strength up because of all of the energy that's required to keep trying and trying and trying until you get that success. And you have to have emotional strength in order to put up with the emotional frustrations and sadness and depressions that can come so that you can break through to the gladness and thrill and excitement. You have to be able to eat and feed yourself well. These are issues as a blind person, particularly feeding yourself well, particularly if you're a single person like I am. Being able to cook as a blind person is a special skill I've learned. I recently discovered Chef Deborah Erickson from The Blind Kitchen. Wow! Another one of my exciting Independence days. Chef Deborah has tools that are made specially for us and techniques that she's developed in years of culinary arts. And I'm looking forward to learning and using them. But it takes a lot of strength and endurance. A third element is support from others. This is one that might be obvious, but it's pretty difficult at the same time. Asking for help is not easy, but it is a skill that you need to learn. You need to be able to be specific about what it is that you need. You have to be able to give feedback to others that things they're offering may not be helpful at all. Such as when somebody says over there when you ask how to get somewhere. You have to explain to them that you need different kinds of directions. Generally, people are able to support you if you can give them that guidance, and you'll be much more successful in trying to accomplish the task that you're attempting. You really can't do it without support, even if it's just that moment where you're lost and you need the direction to the place across the street. Or if it's a long-term issue that you need to have learning and training that just takes time. You can't do it on your own. I can't do it on my own. But once I learned to get the support from other people, I've made huge jumps forward. I've been able to have much more frequent independence days. And blindness has become a lot less scary and impossible. Certainly, I love to support other people, and that's a good thing too. And that's certainly part of this podcast, is to try to see if I can connect with other people in blindness, because I'd sure love some support going along these steps, as hopefully you're getting out of hearing about my steps. Another element that I think is required for the success of breaking through blindness to the independence and freedom is frustration tolerance, or in a broader sense, emotional coping skills. The amount of frustration that's involved with being blind is huge. It's a lot less frustrating than trying to pretend like you're not blind, but there's a lot. And then when you add on top of that the frustration of trying to break through that blindness and learn something new and apply it in a real life situation and deal with failures and modifications and successes that are like approximate, well, you learn to tolerate that as being normal. You have to learn ways to brush it off, to recognize it, to not be distracted by it or engage it, because it's just a waste of energy. It's just a normal part of being blind, and the more you're trying to break through, the more you're going to get. If you have those expectations and you have the coping skills, you'll probably do well. Certainly other emotional coping skills are required, and being a blind person, I'm not sure I have a lot to say about that yet. I think I'm looking for a self-help support group. My caseworker has told me that there may be one for the South Shore. I'll let you know. And one more element that I think that is really important for success is knowledge of technology and resources and things that are available. This is a huge area of potential opportunity for us as blind people. Technologies are being developed every day to help us do something in one aspect or another of our functioning that blindness prevents us from. Some of these are amazing. Many of these are very limited. We'll talk about some in future podcasts. But being able to find out that they're even there is a task. There's no list. Fortunately, now we have things like Google and Bing, and we can do searches for things if we know enough to ask for them. But that's kind of a rude and crude way of finding things. Certainly for anybody in my area, the Mass Commission for the Blind is one of the best resources that's available. And learning about technology, you have to be kind of a geek, I guess, to learn about and develop these skills on your own. You have to be certainly motivated and a geek to try to develop these skills with support of experts. Much of it is new, and being applied for a blind person is not what these people expect many times. But progress can be made. I am most excited about a GPS application to blindness that I've been working on for over a year. with the Mass Commission. Everybody who's ever taken an Uber or driven in their own car and relied on GPS knows how useful they are for going into an area that you don't know, and people tend to trust them. Well, these apps are also available for us as blind people for walking. They're amazing. They're a little tricky when it comes to walking off the grid, like in a park, which is what my goal is. We have 10 parks in Weymouth. I want to walk them all, and I want to give instructions to everybody else who's blind so they can walk them too. I think all of these things are really necessary to be happy as a blind person in the endeavor, in the pursuit of freedom. I'm your host, Terry Hayes. I want to thank you for listening to my first podcast on this Independence Day. I want to hope that it's the first of a lot more, and I hope that it celebrates all of you having Independence Days, breaking through your blindness to the freedom on the other side. I want to be able to share what I've developed in technologies with other people in blindness to save them the trouble of developing those things. I want to get advice from others about how to improve things or better things. I want to help people who are sighted and have vision understand blindness and what blind people need and how to help. I hope that this podcast will do that. If you liked it, I hope you subscribe so that I can notify you about future podcasts, hopefully on a weekly basis. I hope you also look forward to checking out videos as well as some product recommendations on my website, which is coming soon. It's called blindfreedom.net. Thanks.